just repeat that story. So you have this
So this lab walks around the block every day.
Every day. This chocolate lab.
Chocolate lab.
Yep.
He's 3 years old.
Right.
Big, chunky boy.
And usually when Larry would see him...
Gets a bit excited, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, pretty excited. They've met, like, they've handshaked a couple times. And then I started to distance a bit more and be like, hey, I'm a trainer. But... yeah, with this, he was lying down in front of me, but to the point where that man was like, he's very protective of you. I'm like, no, he's just lying down.
No,
but
it's
I think
good
it was
that
a misunderstanding of
What, if I may, just realise that, again, it's a restraint tool, and coming over the muzzle does make it harder for a dog to use their mouth if they need to advocate for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So,
which he still did. Like, yeah.
And that's why he'll come closer to you, because he'll probably feel more safer with you.
Yeah.
So, like, because I've been teaching you a little bit about how to advocate for Larry as well. And with him going like, okay, I'm a bit more restricted. I don't know to what degree. And obviously that other dog, having no malicious intent, can be very intense. Because that's what his experience will say. It will be like, well, I'll just be closer to mum because I'm a bit more restrained, and maybe she could then advocate for me. So even when someone says that, just be aware that every time you do use a different tool, it does take some time for the dog to learn.
Of course, that's why I was like, let's go now. Because I was like, there were 2 people talking out the front of my house.
Front of your house?
Yeah, look, they were just like sitting on the grass. This little dog.
Yeah.
Little shit. Named Tilly. Feral. Not feral, but just barking a lot at Larry and stuff. Grumpy little doggy. But so they were just sitting out the front. And I walked out for on my walk. And they were there. But he actually, so he stayed over
Closer
here with
to
me.
you,
So he actually backed away from them and stuff.
And especially if he's putting if his head's towards them in an angle, not straight on, and he's moving his back away and stuff, that already shows that he's a little bit, he doesn't understand. He's a little bit anxious.
He was more content on me.
Like focusing on you, like, I hope you'll step in kind of thing, which isn't a bad thing, okay? That's not a bad thing. It's a really good way to advocate. Also, if you watch the picture, you'll see the ears are... Now, I know this is a picture and it captures a moment, you know? And we have to be very careful with over-analysing just one picture. Because that doesn't describe an event. It's not a book. So a lot of people say, well, a picture is 1,000 words, but a book is more. Okay, so we have to be very careful. And you can see that he might be in this particular moment a little bit more uncomfortable. And guess what?
I could tell.
Building resilience is about helping him through that. Because if we only ever stay away from stress and, struggles, we never get stronger. We actually get weaker. And I think the same principle in a gym counts for character and personality or I don't know what the correct word is for it.
Is there anything about like that kind of pressure and stuff, like him being more attentive to me? He actually listens to commands and stuff more when he's hyper aroused. So even when he did get excited, I was like, I said lie down, and he lay down like by my side and just watched while I talked, and he seemed to have calmed down more. Or even with strangers near us. Anything.
What you're seeing is less arousal. So if you think about the opposite end, it'll be more to neutral, right? And one of the things I want you to just remind yourself with obedience, okay, is if the position that you command your dog to be in, so down is elbows down, keeps him safe, he'll do it.
Because he went to the side.
And I think this is something that I...
kind of blocking, I guess.
So if you can't read other dogs and you don't really know if they're going to respect your dog's boundaries, like telling a dog to lay down or sit down and get harassed still by the other dog isn't fair on your dog.
The dog was far away. Like, so they backed up.
As long as you remember that in the future, fine, because now what you just did there is you took an opportunity and you went lay down, he lay down. So yes, he's more cooperative because he's a bit more concerned.
I was also, I didn't want the people to judge because I was like,
of course,
they were a bit like, oh, he's protective, huh? Like with the thing, and I was like, oh, it's for guiding his hand and
it's
stuff.
just the
and
way.
And they were like, oh
So that's where what you just did there as an opportunity is you've used obedience to manage your dog. He's already a bit more concerned about the environment, so he's going to gravitate towards you. You put him in a position. It's kept him safe. So he'll be more inclined to do that. And for me, that's a really good relationship with if the dog is dependent enough to can go out and navigate the real world to a degree, but when they do start to feel overwhelmed, and hopefully that happens a little later so that they're a bit stronger every time, and then come back for help, I help.
Yeah.
And in this case with your boy here, it could just be that this particular tactile feedback on the muzzle is what's going to help him. So that's the same as someone who can kind of, like I'm more visually inclined. So someone who uses pictures with me, that's my learning style. So telling me to read a book versus pictures, and then someone can say to me, but can we get away from pictures? And it's like, well, why would you? If I learn via pictures better,
that's
why not?
I always cried because that picture with him on my lap,
and show us that.
I was like, he gets it, like he's never done that before ever, and like it's loose,
but you're
like,
also
everything.
training it, right?
Yeah.
And this is how we start to condition these things, and with consequences it affects feelings, right? And feelings can affect consequences as well, which is some people do that. They focus more on the mind so that the behavior changes. Others focus more on the behavior so that the feeling changes, like whatever. So, and by you have been training this, and now we've got a bit of pressure release system here, which is called negative reinforcement, if you want to get really fancy, right? Where you can now get him to cooperate, as long as you remember little bits of things like that.
But he does that. He did that on his own, where like I didn't ask, because he was just sitting and waiting, and it was like.
And that's a really nice feeling.
Yeah. Well, and there were strangers, so there were two
on the sides.
This has never happened before, because we were waiting at the lights for a while.
Yep.
And two people actually came up and stood like either side, and he didn't like get excited or aroused. He just stayed, and that's never happened. And that smell was like.
And that's what you need if you have people who are nice not to try and entice him. But if they entice him because he's such a good looking fella, and they're like, hey buddy, and he responds, and you then being able to influence him, like, no.
That's kind of
as an assistance dog.
Past as well.
Yeah.
So I've actually been able to overtake people. He gets a little like you can feel, he builds up a little bit.
Of course he does.
And then I go, no, let's go, and he'll ignore them. So it's really like this has. Clicked it.
Well, think about it, because now you have a way to manage this and actually explain to him, like, now is not the time. So because he's an assistance dog, right?
That's what I'm trying to do more with sniffing as well.
Yes.
Because of that, he hasn't actually been sniffing as much either. Because he's quite proud. Like, he holds his head quite high and stuff. Not that I'm pulling or anything.
No, I get that.
Like, he knows there will be pressure if he stops.
Yeah, so what we're going to do, what I'll do next week is I'll bring a harness for him. That's I'll show you it's new stuff I've got developed. That will then become his uniform that you're going to borrow, so that we can cue him when it's assistance dog, I'm in uniform work, and when he can be a dog. Okay, so that's another thing that we'll do.
The difference between
when
window I let him meet the dogs and stuff, there was actually a lovely lady that had an Australian Shepherd, like really fluffy, majestic doggy, walking, and she saw us walking like quite healed and stuff, but was walking like along, so she went on the grass. And was like, he's a service dog, and I was like, he's in training. And she was like, oh my god, that's so amazing, he's so good. And Larry actually didn't want to go meet the dog, and she was like, can they meet? I'm like, no. He's training, and the dog was just really nice and sat as well, and then we just walked on. And it was like
that is such a really good cooperative community to have. When you get
I've never
really
met that person, but because most people are like doggy.
Yeah, they're entitled, right? And they have no impulse control. And yet they demand that from their dogs.
And then with those strangers as well, one of the guys was like really backing up, just like really giving significant distance.
Really wanted you to make sure that
he wasn't standing near the dog.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Like, and he was on the opposite side too, so you know how this works. He was like back, or not even near the curb, just real far back behind me. I was a bit creepy, but
let's do the loop.